Hakuna Mahala, everybody. Happy Friday. I would say happy Hanukkah, but that's not here yet. Welcome to The Good Podcast with Ross Swayback from the beautiful and gorgeous Alive and Social Network studios. Of course, sitting across from me is the ever so handsome Aaron. Say hello to all of our guests and listeners, Aaron.
Hello.
He's sporting his mustache. He's looking good. And it sounds like he has a possible love interest, which I'm going to give myself credit for that because we got talking about him and his Tinder fanatics last weekend. But we'll save that for another show in case you and this new girl ever go anywhere. And then we'll have her on as a guest as well. And we can talk about what it's like to date you, which I think would be kind of fun. My guest today for the show is my sister, my cohort, my co-host in troublemaking. It would be my sister Anne. I would say her last name, but it's way too difficult to say, much less spell. Say hello to everybody, Anne.
Hello.
And my sister actually lives close down to where I originally grew up. She did live in the Twin Cities metro area, but as more and more people flooded to the region, she got scared and anxiety overcame her. So she now lives as close to wildlife as possible, studying birds, looking at deer. And I did see the ever-elusive crackled warbler the other day outside my window. My sister will call me, like I'll call her and tell her that I have a possible cancer scare. And my sister will literally interrupt the fact that I think I'm going to die next week with, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. There's the ever-elusive crackled warbler outside on my bird's feeder. Oh my God, it's so cute. Oh my God,
yeah,
look
and
at
then
that.
we wonder, will you outlive the bird?
Right, exactly. So, and you also have that bird clock, which is by your toilet. So whenever I'm, sitting on there taking a deuce and I hear this bird going, I'm thinking, what the fuck? Like, is there a bird in her house? Like, whatever happened? But Anne and I thought this would be a good opportunity. The holidays are coming. And we recently also had a guest expert on Fox that was discussing what do you do with the holidays coming when you've got those relatives that you don't necessarily want to see, or they're asking you uncomfortable questions, or they're saying things that frankly are inappropriate or uncomfortable. And it made me think, you know what? I need to have my sister on the show to talk about our mom because, she is the ultimate in uncomfortable. And I'm just going to put it out there. Exactly. Ann and I probably spend about maybe 30 minutes a day at a minimum just trying to figure out how to not act like our mother. There's been a lot of damage there. And but Thanksgiving's coming, and we recently had an experience with our mom, which was funny and simultaneously shell-shocking. I'm not going to get into all of the details because that's really not necessary. I'm going to try and spare a lot of that. But our mom has a tendency to come into our lives like an avalanche when it's convenient for her, and then leave without basically telling you that she's gone, so to speak. And ever since I've been an adult, which, what am I now? I'm 30. At least that's what people say I look.
Couple of years or so, anyway.
Right, give or take 15 years. Exactly. So I'm either 15 or I'm 45. You pick. And
right.
If you want to be my friend, you know which direction to go. But ever since I've been an adult, now, and I don't live close to my mom, which has been a benefit to me, and it's actually, I think, what has helped me get rid of a lot of that toxic behavior, because one of the things I've been learning over the last year is that family is like a drug. It really is. And I say that for people who, when you've had a good family experience, when you actually like spending time with your parents, you're not going to want to listen to this show. You're not going to understand anything that I'm saying because this is going to be like listening to Mandarin to you. But I do not come from my growing up experience with very positive thoughts about my growing up. So My mom was very manic. In fact, Ann and I can agree that, you know, growing up, Mom actually seemed really fun, so to speak. She didn't seem as crazy as she did, but where I noticed a big change in her was when Ann finally moved out. We've got an older brother who's 3 years older than Ann, but 2 years in high school older. So he moved out, subsequently then she moved out, and then something happened with her, and she just kind of went off the deep end, and I don't know what it was, but a lot of very crazy behaviors started to happen. And I remember calling Ann because I, you know, looking back, I didn't realize that I was getting very anxious and I was feeling threatened, so to speak, emotionally, not necessarily physically. And so there's Ann off at college, and she was my lifeline to sanity. And I'm calling her because I'm going, when are you coming home? Of course, she's got her 16-year-old brother wanting her to come home and spend time with her, which isn't that what every 18-year-old girl that's in college wants to do? They want to go home and spend time with their 16-year-old brother. I'll pass the cigarette if you come home. That's a little inside joke. When we were younger,
word.
Anne was smoking, but technically not, but she was. And I saw that she was at the neighbors and there was a cigarette involved. And of course, I was such a little tattletale at that time. And so I had talked with our parents about it, and Anne just claimed she was passing the cigarette. She wasn't. So that's still an inside joke. I'm just passing the cigarette. I'm not smoking it.
I'm not smoking, but I'm still smoking hot.
Right, exactly. In your camouflage applique sweatshirt that I'm sure you're wearing. You should probably take a picture of what you're wearing right now so that all of our listeners, all three of them, can see exactly what it is that you're wearing, because you and I have different fashion sense.
I have on my Little Pony T-shirt today.
Oh, see, now I want that Little Pony T-shirt because I think it'd be
know.
funny to wear that to the gym. And
I'm totally going shopping.
Right,
Let everybody see.
And which Little Pony is it that my niece, subsequently your daughter, pointed out doesn't fly? Do you remember the name of that Little Pony?
I don't remember. It might have been Applejack, but I'm not sure.
Oh, my God. That's so funny. And where did you get that Little Pony T-shirt? Because I know I want to get one.
At the store named after me, Hot Topic.
Exactly. All right. Okay, I have to go and find one of those. I keep telling myself to, but then I keep forgetting where it is I need to get it. And it's actually fairly reasonable T-shirt. But let's get back to Mom. So a couple of weeks ago when I was down at Ann's, Mom had called and she's wanting to ask Ann a question regarding something. And then Ann basically was like, listen, I really can't handle this right now. Just from I can't deal with this at this moment in time, but let's basically circle around on Monday. And Mom did not want Ann knowing, or Mom didn't want me knowing that she was calling regarding this subject. And so, of course, after we get off the phone, then Ann, of course, talks to me about it. And because that's just the way it is with Ann and I. We're very, very close. We fought many times throughout our lives, but I don't think it's ever mattered how much I shouldn't necessarily how much we've hated each other, how much. And what's going on in the background of your house?
I apologize, but I have to let my dog out.
Oh, my God. Ann and her dog.
Telling you. That whole responsibility thing sucks.
Oh, give me a break. You can't not touch your dog or your cat, or it's going to be the phone is calling, or there's
I'm walking away.
a speckled goosehorn crane in your yard. Can you concentrate for 60 minutes without worrying about something else? So let's get back to Mom. So, so subsequently, she talked with me about it, and one thing that Ann and I are infamous for doing is we overanalyze everything. Technically, we don't, but that's what my brother-in-law says that we do. We overanalyze everything. And if Kurt, if you're listening, no, we don't. You just don't analyze enough shit.
Calling him out.
Is right, exactly. And I'm dropping the mic. I say that, Kurt, to you. I go, I'm not overanalyzing, and I drop the mic right in front of you, and I walk away. All right. So Anne and I, of course, we did not overanalyze it, but I think we talked about it for, maybe like a half an hour to an hour to maybe 3 hours. I don't know. Could have been 15 minutes. But, the night went on. We weren't talking about it anymore. And then my mom called. I was sitting right next to Anne, and Mom called. And I heard her, and she goes, this is your mother. And it's like, I know, because this is what my mom does when she calls. She goes, this is your mother. and then she goes, well, do you want to replay, Anne, what she said? Because I'm going to paraphrase, and you're probably going to have a much better memory at what she said.
Yeah, it was just something to the effect of, I don't want you and Ross to think of me as your mother anymore, because you guys are just too mean to me, or something to that effect. And
well, you guys say nasty things about me.
Huh?
You guys say nasty things about me.
Yeah, and then it was, I'm going to go heal.
Right, I'm going to go heal. Up. Right, and then just hung up. Just like that, just some random call, which is what my mom does. She does this shit like this. And I'll readily admit, I was like, hooray, Thanksgiving's coming. This means Thanksgiving without her. That means it's going to be a lot better Thanksgiving. But as per her usual, and she, of course, didn't call me because she knows she's not going to get anywhere with me. Mom knows that with me. Because the last time she and I had a quote-unquote discussion, it was an all-out, I think I lost my voice for a day after talking in quotes to her. I've had it with this whole kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth. My mom's the kind of person where she's got these signs up that she's cut out of the paper, out of magazines, where, some call me a bitch, but I just state my opinion. Or, our fingertips get so sore, climbing those mountains, but, it's all about the journey. And it's just, but she doesn't live it. Like, she doesn't back it up with her own action. And everybody in town, of course, thinks that my mom is, and of course I'm from Minnesota, so I have to say my mom is nice. Because isn't that what we always say?
Nice.
My mom is nice.
She certainly has wonderful qualities.
She totally does. Thank you.
She totally does.
Yep. No.
Absolutely.
No.
I mean, we had to get them from somewhere. We've still got some good qualities left.
I think I have 3.
A couple, maybe.
Right. I think I have 3 left. No, and and Mom does have friends, and but her friends are her family. That's kind of the way that I've always kind of grown up with that, where our mother treats her family like their friends, and friends like their family. Her friends, she places more value on those relationships than she does her friends or her family. When my mom will call, I could basically set a timer for 2 minutes because I know she's going to be off the phone because she's got other things to do. And I tried for a long period of time to have a relationship with her and to call her on Sundays, but she's just very busy. She's very, very busy. And so I just gave up. It just didn't even matter anymore. But per my mom's views, of course, she now has contacted Anne and is trying to be like, nothing ever happened. That incident that had just happened, and I'm completely downplaying everything that did happen because there's a little bit more, I think,
right.
a little bit more intense. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
it's the pattern.
Right. And it was the same thing with me when I had that last incident with her, where I was like, I have had enough of, and maybe I should just give a little bit of background on that. I have, technically I have one biological sister, but my sister. Or my brother used to date this gal named Lisa, who subsequently has become a very, very close friend, so to speak. I have a very close relationship with her, as Anne has a close relationship with her. And she and they were living in Seattle at the time, and then she broke up with my brother and subsequently moved back here to Minnesota and lived with my sister, Anne. But we've remained very close, and Lisa has become like a sister to me. So one of the things that's happened through time is that Lisa ended up getting married to a gentleman named Lauren. They live up in Nisswa. on a cute little lake called Middle Cullen Lake. And I am very, as we all know, I generalize and I bastardize everything. So I was just kind of like, you know what? Listen, Lisa's married. I consider her my sister. I now have a family cabin. Can you see how I go those places? It sometimes gets me into trouble, but I'm like, hey, there's just all those degrees of separation. So, of course, this past summer, I did about 5 different spots for the show on Fox about, kind of being up at the family cabin, all this kind of stuff. And my mom called me. She actually talked with my sister about it first. And then she ended up calling me because she said that she was getting questioned by people about this family cabin. And why is it that I was calling Lisa, and I'm totally going to pretend that, because this is exactly how my mom said this to me, why are you calling Lisa your sister? She is not your sister. Anne is your sister. Lisa did not come out of my vagina, she said to me. Okay? And I said to Mom, I tried, explain a little bit. And she goes, I don't care. That bothers me. I don't like it. And I said, well, I don't care if you like it. I'm an adult, and I can call, Lisa my sister if I want to. You should understand that we have this relationship. And, it just is what it is. Blah, 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 blah. And it just led into this hour-long. I try to be very calm, but then, my mom will say something. And of course, the way that I'm even saying that, I'm blaming it on her. But it just kept elevating and elevating and elevating. And finally, I just thought, you know what? Fine. You want to bring it. I will fucking bring this. Let's start to talk about you and all your bullshit and all the fucking bullshit that you do. Because there's this whole, okay, now shit's going to start getting real, okay? There's this whole persona that everybody gets to see in public about my mom. But then there's the real person that we get to see. And that's the person that Anne and I get to deal with, and subsequently my brother, if he ever decides to answer the door. And so after I had this huge blow up with my mom, where I was like, you know what? Listen, you want to be an adult? Then start fucking acting like an adult. Then don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. If I find out that you're doing this, I'm going to totally fucking call you out on your bullshit, is basically, what I was saying to her. So one of the things that I told her not to do was what she was calling Anne to do, which is why she did not want me to know, because she knew I was down visiting Anne, okay? And I thought I was never going to hear from her again, which was, like, totally fine with me. I'm like, life is clean. I've done some more house cleaning emotionally in my life. But then, again, per my mom's use, a couple weeks later, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I was at the thrift store and I bought you something. Now, I didn't need her to buy me anything. You would never want to tell my mom that you like baseball caps, Aaron, because she will buy you 50,000 baseball caps. And if you said, oh, I just love those Minnesota Twin baseball caps, anything she saw that had a Minnesota Twin on it, she would be like buying that for you. Okay? And it's her way to give her a little bit of benefit of doubt. It's her way of showing people how she loves them, because my mom doesn't know how to actually show you, or like she could say, I don't know. What do you think that's about, Anne? Like, why do you think there's this continual need to just keep buying and buying and buying and buying people shit that they don't need, which is what my mom does?
I think that I'm far from an expert, but I think that she doesn't have, like a lot of people, I think she's probably got self-confidence issues, and I've actually talked to her about this. I've just said, you're enough. You don't need to feel like you can't come over unless you have, something with you. Your company is enough. You don't need to bring an offering. You don't need to have an offering or something in your hand in order for someone to accept your presence in their life.
Right.
You have to realize that you are enough for us. But I just don't think it's
because
taken.
When she'll come over, even if it's just to like visit, say she knows that I'm over there, and I don't even have to be coming over there, but she's just coming over to visit Anne. This doesn't happen to me because my mom never comes up to visit me. Driving in the cities is too much for her. But when she'll go over, she'll bring like 5 boxes of Little Debbie snacks, 2 bags of chips, gummy bears, soda, frozen fucking ice cream treats, and she'll just throw them. She'll literally just throw them and she'll have them all in bags, and then she'll just throw them on the counter, and just like, here you go. And then she's not going to take them home. Those are just yours right then and there. And it's just kind of unsettling because it's such a plethora of food. I mean, I think it'd be different if she's like, oh, I'm coming over and I brought a couple of donuts, or, I brought some muffins or something like that. But when you're bringing basically the entire baked goods and snack section and frozen food, treats section of the grocery store and throwing it onto the table there, it just is it's cheap, kind of, don't you think?
I think, when we had that at Thanksgiving last year, where we were, we obviously had desserts and stuff, and she showed up with that stuff and just and of course nobody was interested, and then just kind of dumped it in the middle of the dining room table.
Right, because if you don't touch it, she gets pissed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a lot of layers of complicated issues, but I think it's it's self-worth. It's the fact that if she takes it home, then she takes it personal, and I think it's also for someone who likes to shop, I think it's a way of, hey, now I'm out of this stuff and I get to go to the store.
Well, right.
So I think there's several things that work there, but I don't think she means to be disrespectful. I think she just has to create that void so she can get more, and she has to make sure that
I never thought about that before, that she's kind of unloading her current stash.
Yeah, I think she's making
so that way she can go out and buy more.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is. I have to make room, and then once I make room, I have to go get more because it bothers me that I have a blank spot.
Right. Well, and part of the issue with that too, I understand. I want to acknowledge Amanda, who made a comment that that giving things to people is her love language, and I don't think that. I don't want to come across as I don't understand that. I do get that, but when you're someone on and I feel so horrible right now actually saying this out loud, but when you're on a limited income and you're talking all the time about how you're struggling to make it, and you're having difficulties because you live in your mobile home and you're just an old lady on a fixed income, then you don't have to buy the entire snack food section and bring that over. Like, you don't have to go to the thrift store and buy me things that I, just because I said, told you once, oh, I really thought those were cute or something. Like, you don't have to go out and do those things and put yourself in a compromise, and has nothing to do with those cuckoo clocks. Those just go off.
That's just my brain working.
Right. Exactly. I said something that sparked your brain. But Thanksgiving is coming, and we're trying to figure out, is Mom going to participate in Thanksgiving? Do we have her participate in Thanksgiving? What do you do now after this whole, she decided that she was going to take time to heal. Just did a little dramatic pause there for a second. And then all of a sudden now she thinks that, okay, well, I've done my healing, so I'm just going to come back and we're going to pretend like nothing ever happened, type of a deal. And it would be different if this was just a one-time occurrence, but this happens regularly with her. And so, yeah, I mean... Maybe
3 times. I think I get hung up on typically, 3 times a year.
Right, and even with your kids,
3 or 4 times a year.
Right. And with your kids even, Anne, that you've had that push and pull with her. Luckily, again, I didn't live close to her. A lot of times, Mom would be disrespectful towards Anne with her kids, as far as Anne would tell her, don't do this, don't do that, and then Mom would just do it right in front of her kids. And then
and I think her with the snacks, dumping the snacks, I think that's part of it, because if you tell her no, we don't buy all those snacks for our kids because they're gone in 2 days and that's not good for them, then I think she interprets that as, oh, those poor children are suffering.
Right.
I'm going to go over there and I'm going to bring all this stuff, and and Ann can't take it away because I'm not taking it home.
Which,
Because, she'll do that. She'll tend to, even when she's here, she'll tend to say, oh, you can have all this because Grandma's here.
right, which is such a, which is so ass backwards from when we were growing up, because if our grandma, the grandma who I'm very close to, if Grandma would have ever crossed our mom or done something that Mom told her not to do, an atom bomb would have gone off. Mom would have completely annihilated Grandma and never spoke to her again. And even with growing up, like I'm remembering a story because Mom was so hard as a mother growing up. One time we had one of those, Aaron, you're not old enough to remember these things, but we had a humidifier that had this big round drum in it, and the drum was probably about, I'd say 2.5, maybe 2 feet around, maybe 2.5 feet around, and then it would pick up the water, slowly move around, and then that's what would put, moisture into the air growing up. And so we were responsible to fill that up. We fucking had our chores growing up. It was, Ann and I had to dust. My brother just had to close his room. We had to switch on and off as far as who was doing the dishes, who was drying the dishes, who was, getting Dad's breakfast ready, all those kinds of things. And to our benefit, listen, I think it was a good thing that we had those chores.
That's right.
I don't think anything bad about that. That's the one thing I wish I would have probably been more consistent about with my own daughter. But, I still think my daughter turned out fairly well. But one time, Ann overfilled the humidifier. And how old were you, Ann?
Oh, I would guess I was 9 or 10.
Okay, so let's say 4th, 5th grade, so that way people can kind of put into their head. And so she overfilled the humidifier, and of course, water starts to go everywhere. And wasn't it draining into the basement?
Yes, I believe it was. Of course.
Exactly.
Go big or go home.
So then, can you explain, because I frankly want to hear you tell the story so I can sit back and laugh, what ended up transpiring then?
Well, obviously it was very traumatic, so I don't remember all the details exactly, but the gist
you were going to get sent
was
away.
That,
I do know that.
You better pack your bags because you are gone when I get home from work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what we grew up with. Totally.
I followed directions, so that's exactly what I did.
Exactly right. So, Ann, when Mom got home, Ann was literally sitting on the steps to the house.
Yep.
With her
suitcase,
with her bag packed. Oh my God, it's so funny.
I should have known at that time that was a harbinger of things to come.
Right. But that's the thing. Like, there was so much anger, and when you didn't do something right, like Mom literally would go ape about things. And I remembered I didn't get really yelled at that much because, of course, according to our older brother, I got away with everything. But do you feel like Mom was harder on you than she was on, well, obviously, let's not even say on Ronan, because Ronan can do no wrong with her. Do you feel like she was hardest on you?
I totally feel that way, but in her defense, I think that she anticipated me going the same path that she did, because, you have to remember, in Mom's defense, she was a person with no skills at children, having children, getting married too young to a man that she should not have been married to, but that was that generation, that was in her family. I think that was her thing, was you get a man, you get married, you have children, and that's what you do. And so I think she was harder on me, anticipating that, listen, here's a girl who's probably going to grow up, get pregnant before she's out of high school, or shortly thereafter.
How come you weren't successful at doing that, by the way? Why didn't you score that one?
What?
I said, how come you weren't successful at that? Why didn't you score that getting pregnant in high school?
Somewhere along the line, I picked up a moral or two.
Right,
or
you're
maybe,
such a failure.
maybe I looked around me and went, you know what? No frickin' way.
Exactly.
I gotta go in a
Right.
different direction.
The mating
I don't
pool
want
wasn't
this
very high, right? So you just
for
went over to
myself.
Montgomery.
So I mean, she was doing the best she could with what she had, and she had a little bit that she could control, and the house was it.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I mean, and I think, to just so that way people don't hate on us, so to speak, because you're being a lot better about all this than I have a tendency to be. I think we get that mom and dad did the best that they knew how to do.
absolutely.
I think, right. I mean, they, like you said, married way too early. They should have never gotten married, but mom needed someone around to love her, to make her feel like she, had worth, so to speak.
I think that's all she knew.
Right, that's all she knew, especially from from her upbringing. But then you fast forward to today, to the point where you constantly hear out of her mouth, like, we aren't allowed to talk about any kind of issues, or problems that we're having because, it's just my mom won't accept it, like she doesn't want to hear it, that we're having any issues or problems with anything. It's like, welcome to the country. My sister moved out
Welcome
to the country.
To the real world, Jane
right,
Pauley.
that's her whole deal. It's like, welcome to the real world. Okay, now you're a big
Everybody
boy.
wants to blame it on the parents,
Right.
And you need to make your own decisions, and you can't blame it on your upbringing.
Right,
and,
but that's what she wants to do. But that's what she always wants to do. She wants to, when she has her issues, she, thinks that they're valid, but our issues that we're having, they're not valid, type of a deal. So, which I get sick of it. I really get sick of it. I get sick of her not being an empathetic parent, that the only problems that matter are her problems.
Well, I think she made some, like we all do. We all make mistakes. We all make bad life choices.
I've never made any mistakes.
Well, yes, sure, outside of you. But I think that I think her life did not turn out the way that she wanted it to.
No.
I think Dad's life didn't turn out the way that he
Nope.
wanted it to, and I think you just kind of have this bitterness, and it's hard to get rid of, and you wish you would have did something different, but you can't turn back the clock. And so I think when it becomes a comparison thing, when you're going through something, I think the first thing that kind of hops into her mind is, well, yeah, that's nothing compared to what I've had to deal with, and I've raised you. So I think it gets there, the empathy gets lost in a competition between whose life is harder.
But isn't that interesting for you to bring that up, because you and I are both parents,
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting to look at your relationship with your children and say to yourself, have I ever, in talking to my child when they've been talking about something that they've been going through, have I ever looked at it like, oh, well, if you want, like, if this is going to be a competition, like, I'll certainly tell you, you know what I mean? Like, I've never heard Hadass talk about something and me think, oh, well, if she wants to complain about something, then I'm going to complain about something. I mean, you get where I'm going with this. Like, it's not we are not, like, she's not maternal. We
no,
don't have that relationship with her.
There's a difference between, and we've certainly seen this in other areas, there's a difference between the ability to give birth and the ability to mother.
Right.
And so I think that we definitely have had some wonderful, wonderful times, but I think that people change over time, relationships change, and I think a big thing happens when you have your own children, because your only reference is you're growing up.
Ugh.
And when you're out of the house and you start to get kind of, it's like Adele, hello from the outside. Now that I'm not in that chaotic tornado anymore, I can look at it from a different perspective and go, you know what? I'm not going to do this with my kids.
Right.
I try and parent in a completely different way. Not that everything was awful, but I want to have a different relationship with my kids.
Well, and you and I have said
than
on
I
many
had growing up,
occasions,
certainly.
right? You and I have said on many occasions because Ann and I kind of look at our relationship as we are our family, and we've said continually that we always say to ourselves, well, what would mom have done in this situation? And then we just try and do the exact opposite.
Yes.
And I know you smile about it's so funny because Aaron kind of smiled about it. I think he thought that was a little bit funny, but it is kind of funny, but it's really sad that you can't use the example that was provided to you. When after that weekend happened, when I was down at Ann's and heard that, and it was just, and I think Ann, now that I'm absorbing it a little bit here and talking about, I laughed about it when it happened, but I think that's the only emotion that I could do, because if I think about how mom really does act with us, how she expects us to be the adults in this relationship and she can be the child, it really fucking pisses me off. Because
and I think too, going back to doing the opposite, I think that just from what you were raised in, it's that fight or flight kind of thing. When something happens, your instinct, the first thing that you want to do is your instinct. And what does your instinct tell you? Well, your instinct goes back to your past, and it's like you want to do what mom would have done. And so you have to take a breath and you have to go, is that the right thing to do here? I need to process, and I need to, 99 times out of 100, do something different in that situation, because my instinct is not the right choice to move forward in a positive way or do the right thing.
Right. And is it wrong to not want to spend the holidays or even just time? Is it wrong to not want to call her back? I mean, Ann, let's just be honest. You and I had this conversation. I'm fortunate enough that mom won't call me.
Yeah, I'm sitting here now. She's, as she's called me twice. So we've gone from, don't think of me as your mother, click, to how you doing?
Right. Happy anniversary.
Going? Yeah, and I am to the point after going through this experience how many times being torn between, we should forgive. This is family, quote unquote. We should forgive. We should move on. But to the other part of it being, if I forgive and move on, I'm setting myself up again. Something's going to happen.
To get hung up on again.
I'm going to get hung up again. I'm going to get, quote unquote, disowned again.
Right.
So do I want to go back for more? Do I want to expose my kids to this?
Right.
Because things have been quiet. Things
Right.
have been calm.
Right.
If I go back, I'm back into that chaotic day-to-day stuff because, of course, I live closer. Do I want to jump back into that fray, or do I want to just concentrate on my family?
Right. One time, and I'm looking at Aaron because I'm trying to gauge through his reactions. Does he get the kind of the crazy? And it reminded me of a story, which you're going to remember this, Ann, because I don't know if listeners are actually getting. I'm trying not to uncover everything because I want to be a little respectful, so to speak.
Yeah.
But here's a prime example too. It's roughly about a year ago. I think a year ago. Actually, I think it was maybe just a little bit over a year ago. I got some random phone call from Mom, and I don't even remember how much it was, but she was wanting to know if she could borrow money from me, okay? Which is a typical, let's just say it, is a typical phone call. This is usually why you're going to get a phone call, okay? At least for me. And I was working at the time, so I couldn't really talk for long. I said, you know what, listen, I'll check into it. I'll get back to you, blah, 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 blah. And she was telling me that it was for one reason. Well, it turned out it wasn't for the reason that she gave to me. It was because she wanted to get some new dining room chairs that someone had shown her on Craigslist. And my mom is not someone that can tell anyone no. So, Aaron, if you went to her house and you're like, oh, hey, Maggie, you should see these really cool chairs on Craigslist. In her mind, she thinks you're saying, Maggie, you should buy these. And she is not going to be able to say no to you. She will
Well,
find.
I think it's more of a pride issue. It's like, well, if you think I should have those chairs,
Then I
obviously
should.
I have to get those chairs.
Right, then I
because
should.
if I say no, then you might think that I'm not tough. I'm
Right.
not a tough single woman. I can't take care of myself, that I can't handle money.
Right.
I have to
'Cause you
do
can't.
that. You know, I have to show you that I can do what I want when I want. So
Right.
I'm going to get those chairs.
Right. So, but I found this out through, of course, talking to Anne, that this is what was really going on. She wanted to get these dining room chairs, which my mom already had dining room chairs. Okay, she doesn't need more dining room chairs. She lives, remember, in her mobile home. Okay, that's what she calls it. Most people call it a mobile home.
And she does have a very nice mobile home.
She
There's
does.
no
Listen,
question.
it's clean.
She really does.
It's clean. You know, I don't feel like it's, buried alive in there. I mean, I do get anxiety when I go there. But to further along the story, because we know I have problems with that, subsequently she ended up calling me again to see, if I was going to be able to. And do you remember, Ann, how much it was? Was it like $140 or $70 or something like that? It wasn't.
Well, I think
an exorbitant amount of
the
money.
cost was 70 something, but you were being told they were 100 or
Right. Oh, yeah, that's what it
something
was.
like
Because
that.
she was telling me one amount when it really wasn't the amount. But then when she followed up with the phone call, I thought, okay, well, let's see if she actually tells me, or readjusts the story. Oh, because I ended up calling her back. That's what happened. And when I called her back, her friend was coming over to see her new chairs, which is what the money was for. Okay.
Sure.
And
sure.
she had to let me go because her friends had come over to see her new chairs, which then I was like, oh, well, somehow she came up with the money to get the chairs. But she still then called me back like 20 minutes later and said, I'm sorry to hang up. Are you able to help me out? Because, I'm an old lady and a fixed income, And I thought to myself, you got the money. And you're not being honest with me about what you want the money for. I feel horrible saying all this, but this is the truth. And so I says, you know what? I said, I still haven't had a chance to look yet. I'll get back to you. And then she called me back the next day and disowned me because I wouldn't give her $70. Think about that, Aaron. I want you to think about that. Think about how it would feel to have your own mother disown you, write you out of her will. Because that's what she did. Because I wouldn't give her $70 to buy dining room chairs. That's what I fucking grew up with. That's why when people are like, why do you make all those bad decisions? Because this was my example. And I love my mother. I mean, this is the whole push-pull. I love my mother. I think she's amazing. A couple of times I've had her come up and spend like a weekend before the holidays or, spend a week up so that we can just have time away from all of her things, away from her friends, away from her phone. Because my mom's a different person, even though I think it gives her anxiety to be away from her things. I think my mother's a beautiful, wonderful, amazing person. But I can't handle or I don't understand this need to disown your own children because they won't give you $70 or to call your daughter and to say, I'm not talking to you anymore because you won't, give me $70. It's like, really? This is your child who you gave birth to and raised. And if you are so smart with money, then, and that's always the issue here, by the way. So it's like, how do you continue to help that parent who supposedly is wise with money and is, I'm not a bitch, I just speak my mind. She's got all this freaking bravado about her. But then to have her basically come back to you and treat you just like you're a piece of shit, because that's all we know. So that's why when Ann and I, we ask ourselves, how would mom handle this situation? And then we do the opposite because no, I don't want to tell my daughter I'm writing you out of my will and I'm never going to talk to you again. Because that's a horrible thing to say to your child over $70. And I don't care if anyone says, well, you should just give her $70 and then she wouldn't have done that. It's like, no, my mom is old enough. She should not be lying to people. She should not be lying to her children. And she should, and this is the question that Ann and I have had, is like, my mom is old enough, so to speak. I think she's 70. Am I right? 71.
Yeah, she's in her I think she's 72. Maybe?
Do you give your parents a pass because they're 70 to just do and act and be however they want, or what do? Do you just let it go?
I think it depends upon who's funding the deal. I mean, that's where
Well, yeah, you're the Bank of
I
Ann.
have
You know
had
that.
to kind of shut the door. Is go, you know what? If I help you out financially, and then you show up at my door with bags and bags of stuff, and which total about half of what I gave you, then I'm not so inclined to keep funding your expeditions. And I think that I compare it to kind of an addict situation, and I say, you know what, if that's your deal, you know what, we all have our addictions in some way, shape, or form. Well, most addictions cost money. I'm not going to fund your addiction. It's kind of the way I had to look at it. So if you can, I will live and let live, but I'm not going to be the bank anymore. You know, like I said the last time, you know, the lobby and the drive-thru are both closed.
Right.
And I think that, and it's sad because financially I would love to help, but if I do, I know where it's going.
Right, you're opening Pandora's box
not,
with her.
You know, I'm not working for that. That's not what I work for.
Right. And that's what our whole blow up, you know, after we had that conversation, you know, with respect to Lisa, you know, being my sister, and Mom, you know, was basically, you know, telling me that I need to put my big boy pants on. And I'm like, oh, really? You want to bring big boy pants? Well, let's bring in the big girl pants, too. So then basically at the end of the conversation, one of my conditions to her was, you better never ask Ann for money again, which is why she didn't want me to know that she was calling in asking for money. Because we had basically just been down there you've seen her 2 weeks previously, and she was telling us about how amazing she was doing with her money and how, you know, she was handling herself all this, you know, fantastic and stuff. And I won't get into all of the specifics, but, you know, even during that incident where she was asking Ann again, she was coming to Ann again, which I understand. Listen, don't hate on me. You know, I get that people have elderly parents or people have issues. I've had issues. I've had to go to people, you know, repeatedly in my life to ask for assistance. My sister has helped me for assistance. You know, I'm not hating on people for doing that. It's the fact that, you know, this is a continual cycle or pattern that she has, and then when you don't do it, when you don't help her, she then just basically goes ballistic on you, and so she knew better than to have me know that she's doing that. And I'm the first person to say I know from personal experience what it's like. It's not difficult It's not easy going and asking someone for help for money. I mean, that's a very humbling experience. But one would think that if you've done it a couple of times, it would be more humbling, like it would be harder and harder and harder to keep going back. And Ann was basically just wanting her to wait a couple of days to see if something else would come through first that she had said would come through. And Mom was pissed because she wouldn't help her now. And that's what pisses me off. You know, that's what's disappointing, because I'm 70, I want my way. It's just like she's some 3-year-old girl, you know?
Well, and I think, too, I mean, if you've had to go and ask for, and this kind of, I think, kind of touches on that addiction thing again, if that is in fact what it is, you know, if I've had to ask somebody for money a couple of times because I've made some mistakes, I might want to be changing
my pattern of behavior
today, and I might want to be watching my money and saying, you know what, I don't need to be running here and buying all this stuff, or you know, I need to watch this. But we all have to make our choices, and if you make the choice to do that, and you know, I kind of have just had to say, you know what, like you tell me, hey, listen, that's the consequences of the choice that you made.
Right. Exactly.
You know, but I think the fact that I have not gotten myself into that situation, I think there's that perception of, well, listen, you're not in that situation, so you should totally be picking up my slack for me whenever I need it.
I mean, let's just call it for what it is. When you got that new car, she was pissed because you got a new car and you didn't give her your old car.
Well, I don't think she wanted me to give her my old car. I mean, I think it kind of went through her mind, but I think it was more of, well, if you can afford that car, then, you know, I need a new car, so you can buy me one.
Yeah, and that was basically inferred. I mean, that was said out loud, you know. And it's like, really? I mean, and I'm not saying that parents don't need help. I want everyone to get, that, we love our mother, but
oh gosh,
it's
yes.
so
I mean, I
fucking
totally would have.
frustrating.
I mean, if recent events hadn't happened, I totally would have.
Oh, I know you would have
if it
helped
would've-
her.
Absolutely.
Right.
I would, if her car died, I would have said, listen, I'm going to get together as much as I can. I won't co-sign
Right.
on a loan for you.
Right.
But you know what? I will see what I can do to contribute towards your down payment or, whatever I can do. Obviously,
Right.
I would do. That's, but I think for my, and I don't know, Ross, I guess we haven't overanalyzed enough, but for myself,
Well, let's ask Kurt. We can ask Kurt.
I don't know at this point what do you do, because we're taught, the right thing to do is forgive. The holidays are coming. It's very much family-based. We've got this new Adele song out there reminding us, hello from the outside, don't be a bitch, and all this other stuff. But then on the other hand, you say, you know what, I don't know that it's healthy for me or my children to be exposed to that.
Right.
To that dysfunction. And all families have their issues. All families have their dysfunction. There's crap everywhere. We all grow up with baggage, and when we have our own children, we have to decide, what are we going to change? And you know what? Our kids are going to think we're crazy.
Mine won't. I don't. Stop looping me into all of that stuff, because my daughter is going to.
Everybody wants to do stuff differently.
Right.
Than what their parents did. But, I don't think we had it all bad, certainly. I mean, I think it's just a situation where we had two parents who didn't have the skills.
Right.
They didn't have the
None.
skills. They didn't know what to do. They just worked and made it through day by day, and here we are. We survived, basically, is how we have to look at it. We survived, and now that we've been on the outside for a little while, how are we going to have our relationships with our kids, and what choices are we going to make? And it didn't take me long after. That's where you and I differ. I think you continued to kind of do these things, these mistakes, and it didn't take me long
totally
after
did.
I got out to just start making different life choices and going, wait a second, I'm not going for the immediate gratification road here.
Yeah, I've
I have
only
to sit
just
back and
recently
look at things
gotten out of all of that.
differently, have to make different choices.
Right.
And and here we are with the holidays coming, and you say, well, do I pick up the phone? Do I make a phone call?
Do I call her
Do
back?
I say, listen, you can only have a relationship with me based on these circumstances and hope for the best, or again, or do, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So
Amen,
regardless,
sister.
if you make that connection again, you're kind of setting yourself up. You know it's going to happen
Right.
again. Something's going to happen again. It's a pattern, and you have to look at it and go, do I want to jump into that, or do I have to just be done for my own sanity
Right.
and concentrate on my household?
Right, because you're going to get hung up on again within the next 3 to 4 months.
Well, and my kids have been hung up on. So
Oh, my God, I didn't even realize that.
Oh, yes. So from, and I kind of been looking at this whole thing, after being kind of disowned again. I kind of looked at it this time from my kids and going, you know what? My kids don't mention going over to visit.
Right.
They don't ask me how she is. So I think there's been some damage even done to them.
Right, within the context of their relationship.
Right. It's just something that we don't talk. I mean, I'm not going to talk bad about my mother, but I'm going to wait and see. I mean, but the kids aren't even interested. There's
Right.
They'll talk about, my in-laws, but
they don't talk about
unfortunately,
Mom.
so now I don't know what's going. I don't
Yeah.
know, what do you do? It's
Well,
not
right,
like
and Hadassah is the same way. She never talks about Grandma. So I think she talks about Trisha's mom and dad more than she does about our mom. So
yeah, and again, I think it's just there's a difference between giving birth and being a mother, and I think in our situation, and there could have been a lot of families like this in that generation, is what, you find a man and you have children to cement that marriage, because there wasn't really divorce going on in that generation.
No.
That's just kind of what you did.
Right.
You know, in this generation, in this situation, they probably wouldn't have gotten married. You know, it would have been a whole different story. Or they wouldn't have even, you know, hooked up.
Right.
You know.
No, you're
but
right.
at that time, that's what you did. And so I don't, you know, having kids is not, it's not a walk in the park, as we know.
No, right.
And
I mean,
it's
it's
how
not,
you handle it. So I think she kind of looked at it and went, listen, this is what I signed up for. I'm going to get these kids raised. I'm going to get them out of my house.
Well, and she definitely made sure to tell us that all the time, too. I can't wait till you fucking kids grow up and get the fuck out of my house.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So.
But, you know, that kind of turns against you because guess what happens?
Right.
They grow up and they get out of your house.
No, we don't. And then she does,
the
and then she
phone
wonders,
doesn't ring.
right, exactly. And now she's wondering why we don't, you know, do anything with her.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it's really, and I think it's hard when you see people around you having these close relationships with their parents. I know I have a neighbor that their kids are over there all the time and they're in the backyard having fun, and I'm like, wow.
I can't imagine.
Wish I could have that.
Yeah. I have no clue. I don't know about you, Ann, but I look forward to that when, you know, Hadass, if she ever decides to get married and if she ever decides then to have kids, you know, to having that relationship with her. So, and her kids, you know, having something healthy as opposed to something that I think is very toxic. And I think, you know, you and I, hopefully, you know, listeners are giving us some credit. You know, this our viewpoints aren't just coming as knee-jerk reactions to something that we're just, you know, all of it. I mean, we really do. We do give mom and dad credit for the work that goes into raising children. I mean, I've raised my child. Of course, you're still in the process of raising yours. You know, we're looking at it from both vantage points, and we're trying to give them leeway. Or we're trying to give them credit, you know, where credit, of course, is deserved. But then to have to also deal with all, you know, this reoccurring nightmare that seems to kind of keep happening. When do you say as an adult, enough? I am not enough. I can't handle that anymore. I'm refusing to take that on anymore, you know, because I'm not living under your roof. I don't have to put up with your bullshit anymore. And so I think that's the big question, you know, especially I think a lot of people are dealing with this with the holidays, and how do you rekindle or do you connect with those family members, quote unquote, just because it's the holidays? And to what end? You know, what is it really going to?
Do you not?
Right.
Do you just not? Because you don't know what you're in for.
Right.
And I mean, and talk about giving credit where credit is due. I mean, we cannot discount the fact that our mom and dad, hard workers, passed on their work ethic to us. I think you and I are very much have the same work ethic. Of you know, time to lean, time to clean. There is always something that needs to be done. I think that was something they passed along. And I mean, when my son was born, my mom was, you know, my daycare lady, and she did a fantastic job. She has certainly done some wonderful, wonderful things. But I think that, again, I think time changes people. People change. And I don't, you get to the point where you say, well, I remember the mom that raised me, but I can't have a relationship with her anymore because now I've got this other person that happened to have given birth to me but is unhappy or is it's not the same person.
No, and
by
I
any
think
means.
Right, and I think you know, by you saying that, and I think you can completely relate with what I'm going to say. I love Mom immensely. I think she's a beautiful person. And when I see how she is, or I think about the person that she is for other people, I want her to be that for me. I want her to be that for you. But that's not who she is for us. You know, I'm completely generalizing. Everybody knows that's what I do, but it's like we get Joan Crawford and everybody else gets, you know, Mother Teresa. And I don't know if that's because it's safe. She can unleash upon us.
It's a lot of work to try and be
it's exhausting.
something else.
It's exhausting. Yep.
And And so we all have to, it's like when you go out to the office, you are your professional self, and when you come home, you're your real self.
Right.
And you can't be your professional self all the time. It's exhausting.
Yeah. I had some ladies come into the store. I'll tell the story, and then we can kind of wrap this up. I had some ladies come into Williams-Sonoma literally the day after. Of course, I was going to tell this story 30 minutes ago. That's what always happens with me. But these ladies came in the store. It was a mother-daughter. I learned this kind of over time, and I learned that they actually they chose to live close to each other, just like I think maybe within a block or two of each other, in Montana. They traveled here together to go shopping together for holiday entertaining stuff because they spend the holidays together. And the mother, I think the daughter was probably 60, maybe. I'm going to say the daughter was in her 60s. The mother was in her 80s. And the mom was just, she was vacillating on a couple of things. It was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. And the daughter rolled her eyes a couple of times, and when the mom would walk away, the daughter would be like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And finally, I stopped the daughter, and I said, here's the deal. I said, if that's all your mother does is that, because I'm, of course, coming off of I've disowned you again. And I said to her, if that's all your mom does, I said, you need to be grateful that you have the mother that you have. I said, because I would trade mothers with you any day if that's all I had to put up with. And she kind of looked at me, and I said, yeah, marinate in that one. And then when they were done or whatever, she goes, you know what? Thank you for reminding me of what I have instead of, forgetting what I have. And it was probably 2 hours later, I had another similar situation because the mom couldn't figure out what kind of linens she wanted to buy for the Thanksgiving table. And the daughter, again, apologized to me when the mom had walked away. And I said the same exact thing to her. I go, you have nothing to apologize for. Your mother is lovely. I said, if you are choosing to spend the holidays with this person, that says a lot, because I would not choose to spend the holiday with my mother. And she too was like, wow, I've never thought about it like that, because I just, assumed. And I'm like, yeah. I said, not everybody has a nice mother. And so maybe that's a good way to end on it, is think about if you have a good mother, like if you love spending time with your parents, be grateful. Have gratitude in that and marinate in that, because you are fucking lucky to have parents who actually listen to you. I can't tell you how many times you've been like, well, it's kind of meaningless for me to talk about something that I'm dealing with because she's not even going to listen. So you're great. You're blessed to have parents who listen to you, who you choose to spend time with, who love your children, who back up your authority as a parent, who truly want you to succeed in life and don't see something that you succeed in as being some kind of competition that then they have to cut you down for because they want to be better than you. Be grateful, and actually this, Thanksgiving, tell your parents how grateful that you are, that they are your parents, because not everybody has that gift. And, and I, with, sharing a fifth of booze with my sister, will be giving a toast to you.
Oh, that reminds me. I got
right, with a fuck
store.
You and your happy family situation. Exactly. Screw you and your happiness. I don't know. I think we should do it with the apple Aritas, because that's totally our jam now. At least it's my jam.
Well, then you don't have to mix anything. You just pop the top.
Well, no, since I made that.
Get to the business.
Right. Remember when I made that drink the last time with the apple Aritas and the cinnamon and the ginger beer? Those were really good. If you ever had those apple Aritas, have you had those, Aaron? Of course, here I'm like, how do I forget my family problems as I drink? All those beer Garitas in a can by Bud Light are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So, but anyways, back to kind of all seriousness. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope this has kind of given you some perspective, especially those of you who do have healthy relationships. with your parents, what you actually do have. And for those of you that have similar situations, hopefully not too similar, know that there's other people out there that deal with the same thing that you do, because it's not what Ann and I deal with. We're not the only people that have issues with, dealing with our parents for the holidays, or your mother, whichever one it is. Our father passed away, over 10 years ago. But hopefully this is some food for thought for you guys, and I look forward to, coming back. I'm actually going to be doing a blab here coming up within an hour with Seth Yankowitz, who's the vice president of casting for Fox Television, and I'll be doing that a live video stream. It just kind of happened that I had time to kind of impromptu do one, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about family and how is it that you deal with them during the holidays. I keep repeating myself, so I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you, Ann, by the way, for coming on. I appreciate it. I love you. I do want to be able to also say this. Frankly, Ann is my lifeline, and I can't imagine my life without her. I don't think that I would be a fourth of the person that I am today if it wasn't for the fact that I have my sister in my life. So thank you very much.
I love you
I
too,
love
bud.
you so much. I'm not looking forward to spending the weekend with you, though. That's not going to be fun. Your poor daughter is going to be, because we're going to have to overanalyze just talking on the podcast for the next 3 days. But
That's right.
Right. So we'll let you guys go, and have a great weekend. Take care, and I love all of you. Find me on iTunes. Find me on Periscope, on Instagram, Twitter, The Good Podcast. We're also on Facebook. And check out aliveandsocial.com for all of our other podcasts. I'm hopeful here pretty soon that I'm going to be able to get an opportunity to be on the Great Northern Sex Cast, just to make a little bit of a transition. But we'll let all of you go, and thank you again from the bottom of my heart. I believe that the greatest success is being yourself. So just work on being successful in who you are as a person. Take care, everybody.
So